Hi everyone, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and I'm here today to show you a little bit about my progress with hand quilting on the Blue Star project. And I want to tell you about what happened, how I corrected those problems that I talked about in a previous video, and show you not only the progress that I've made in just about a week, a little bit more than a week, and what the quilting design looks like. So we'll be right back and I'll show you. And welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Thanks for joining us. Now, if you recall, Blue Star was a machine-pieced quilt project that we did last year. And it is about, I'm going to go from memory, 75 inches square. There are 25 blocks, and approximately half are this block here, Sister's Choice, and half are what I refer to as the plain block. Now, the last you heard about this was a video I released a little while back regarding the problems I was having hand quilting this. I had loaded it on my Grace EZ3 frame and everything looked like it was going well, and I probably had 2.5, 3 rows quilted. Now I will say this, I wasn't quilting the Sister's Choice block, I was only quilting the plain blocks, and I was doing two rows in each block that were square. And my thought process was to do that, to get it on the frame, to put that quilting in, and then take it off for the holidays, and then put it back on or quilt in a hoop, however I needed to, for any extra quilting that I wanted to add. Because at the time I could, excuse me, because at the time I couldn't decide how I wanted to quilt the Sister's Choice block. And I have always enjoyed quilting on the frame. I find I'm not able to sit as long and quilt, so frequently it's up and down, sit down and quilt for 20-30 minutes, and then get up and then come back and another 20-30 minutes. Whereas sitting on the sofa quilting in a hoop, which I've got this in here, I can do for hours at a time. You know, you just kind of shift to become more comfortable in how you're sitting, but there are longer periods of duration with quilting, and a lot of times that makes it go faster. The thing that slows it down is having to reposition it in the hoop, which I was trying to avoid by putting it on the frame. Long story to bring you where we are today. I took it off the frame entirely because the poofs and the gathers and the buckles and I don't know what else you want to call them had just gotten to the point where it was more than I could accommodate in quilting it. So I started quilting in the hoop, and at the time of filming this, that was probably about 10 days ago that I started actually quilting in the hoop and made a decision on the pattern for the quilting. And let me adjust this just slightly. The hoop I have here is not quite big enough to put this whole block for the busy block, the Sister's Choice block, into the hoop at one time. You can get about 2/3 of it in, and then you have to reposition it once or twice depending on how it is. Let's make sure we've got this right here where you can see it. And I'm going to bring a lamp over because sometimes that extra light is helpful in being able to see the quilting pattern. So here is Sister's Choice. And what I decided to do was quilt about 1/4 inch, an echo around the outside of the star, the block, the star that's in the block. And then also do the echo quilting in the white squares. So what effectively that means is the quilting stitches are all in white on the white fabric, and there are no stitches in the blue. Stitching with a contrasting thread against your fabric is very dramatic, but it also requires some precision to make sure that those stitches are equal in length and they're equally spaced from your seam line and so forth. And that was something I really didn't want to deal with on this quilt. So I decided not to do it. Now I'm not sure exactly how well you can see that. Sometimes if I adjust the light, you might be able to see a little bit better. I'm not sure if that helps or not, but I hope that you can see where those stitching lines are. Now, like I said, I started hand stitching this probably about 7 to 10 days ago. I don't remember exactly how long it's been, and there have been several evenings that I've been able to spend probably 3 hours quilting, and that is one advantage of doing it in a hoop for me. Right now, what I did is I started in the middle, and that would be this square right here. This one sits right in the middle. And then from that middle square, I started working my way out. See, I have a square here, and then I went to this square, and then I could come back to this square, and now we're at the edge. And I've moved all the way over to the corner, in this corner, and I'm working my way back this way up to the center area. So that's 1/4 of the quilt. And once I finish this square that I'm at least halfway done with, I'll have 1/4 of it done. The squares, the plain block squares, this one here, I chose to do just a simple design, and that is just a box at approximately 2 inches away from the blue square. I can't always come back and add to that. I considered making a diagonal line from the corner up to the corner of the quilting to maybe make it look like a frame on it. That's still a possibility. I wanted all of the quilting to be in geometric straight line patterns so that there were no circles on this at all, because there are no circles in the piecing at all. And I have used this kind of technique before on other quilts. I don't know if you can see the one that's on the wall over here. It's kind of the same way. It used a lot of different kinds of quilting patterns versus just having very consistent quilting throughout the blocks. So in a short period of time, I've been able to do really more than I did on the frame, which is a little surprising because usually I try to use the frame to make quick progress. But I don't know if it's just that my quilting technique has changed, or if my physical ability to sit in a chair that long over a frame has changed. Perhaps it has. There's really no way to know. I know that sitting in a chair, even here sitting in a chair sewing for long periods of time does, it's kind of rough on my back and my shoulders. And I've just recently lifted my table about 1.5 inches to 2 inches to see if that improves it. I think sometimes it's a ergonomical issue where you're hunched over, and after a while that begins to wear on you. And you would think, the way they talk about how this should work, this table should be a little bit lower. But I find it works for me better at this height, at least for now. So that's where I am on this quilt. It really, to me, it looks really good. And I think we're going to be really happy with the way it's quilted as it's done. I would say probably we've got 1/4 done in 7-8 days, so probably another 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and we'll be done with this, provided nothing interrupts that quilting time. So we'll just see how it goes. Now, I have not addressed the borders on this at all yet, so I need to decide whether I want to only quilt in the white or if I want to go ahead and quilt in this blue border. And I will say this, that when I sandwich this again, a couple of things that I did differently. First of all, I took it completely apart, all of the pieces apart, and started with the quilt top. And then I placed the batting on top of it, and I trimmed the batting a little bit. The batting was pretty much the size it needed to be. And it is, we'll have to go back and look at the videos about how I sandwiched this and what I used. But the batting really could be a little bit bigger. It is stretched to its limits. And I think that when we get to the point where we're at the edge, you can see that that batting is truly right at the edge of the blue fabric. We should be okay in most spots, and then in some, you can stretch this batting just a little bit. It has a little bit of give. And I think that working it in the hoop, because I keep it really tight in that hoop, that helps it too, because it's really pulling. Every time we put a block in the quilt, you're pulling it to making sure that it's really nice and taut in there, instead of being kind of drapey and loosey-goosey. So I need to decide about quilting on the edges and how I want to do that. If I want to make it a feature where we're doing a design in the quilting, or if I just want to do a quick little stitch around it and be done with it. So that's to be determined at this point. But I wanted to bring you up to date because I've had a couple of people who have commented and given suggestions about the problems that I was having on the frame. And I just wanted to bring you up to date that I've solved that, and I am moving forward with this, but I certainly do appreciate all the comments and suggestions about the frame, because I'm going to try it again, and maybe next time if I try something a little bit smaller, it'll work really well. So thank you for that. I hope you've enjoyed this little update on Blue Star and the hand quilting. I love hand quilting. I love applique. I really like all of those nice little tiny hand stitches that you make. I enjoy piecing things together and creating a look, but it's really that hand stitching that brings out the joy for me, because it's a way to ease your mind and let your mind think or wander or just rest, whatever it needs to do while you're doing something kind of repetitive, keeping your hands busy. I almost find that that's just a way of relaxing and almost meditating sometimes, and being able to, as the folks say, center yourself. But it does provide a bit of meditation and grace for me to be able to do that. So I enjoy it immensely. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, we do have 2 levels of membership available where you could do that. And of course, you can cancel at any time. Thanks so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.